Here we go. I like to look at the classification of symptoms, and you can definitely look at this from a variety of perspectives. And for the time that we have today, I'm going to make it pretty simple, and we can definitely talk about this more at another time. So what I put down is the etiology. Now, the etiology is not particularly a symptom, but it is a situation that has caused a symptom. So it's important. Then we have the totality of symptoms. When I supervise cases, and I do look at quite a few cases every week, this seems to be a problem sometimes. Which totality should be there? People ask me which symptoms are the part of the totality of symptoms. And so we'll look into that. Then we look into the 3 types of symptoms that we generally work with as homeopath. We look at the keynotes, and we look at complete symptoms. Now, if you have any idea what kind of symptom may be missing, please let me know. There's a symptom that I didn't put into this list, but that we do address at some point. And those are those mysterious concomitant symptoms. For the etiology, I would like to say this. First of all, it's covered in aphorism 5. It is not always available. If it is available, it is really important. But when is the etiology important? Do you have any kind of thought about this? So I'm going to get back to it, but first we do have a variety of etiologies: the shock, the grief, an accident, maybe a sickness, somebody being extremely angry, like ending up with stomach aches or something, then a big disappointment, a major loss, taking medications and never have been well since. Particular habits is what Hahnemann talks about. Lifestyle habits can be an etiology. The job could be an etiology. It could cause major problems if you're not fit to do this kind of job. So when do we want to make sure that we use the etiology? If you have any thoughts on this. Oh, no comments yet, are there? Well, I think I give it away then. The etiology is important when we do deal with a symptom that is there since the etiology, since that occasion, as Hahnemann also calls it, or the cause of the current problem. This is when we want to use that symptom. Let's go to the next set, and I'd like to talk about the totality of symptoms. So if you have any questions about totality of symptoms, please let me know. And this is very much a challenging issue when you write cases, especially when you have really big cases and there are lots of symptoms. So Hahnemann is pretty clear about this, and I'd like you to read that again, aphorism 6. Hahnemann talks about the deviations from the former healthy state. So he doesn't talk about the history or any kind of symptoms that were happening when the person was a child, or any kind of symptoms and states that somebody went through in life. He talks about the deviations from the former healthy state felt by the patient, perceived by others, and also observed by the physician. Now, those symptoms that happened in childhood, or that happened when somebody got into college, or that happened after they got married, those symptoms can be important if they carry into the present. The next set of symptoms I'd like you to look at, and these are the ones that are very, very familiar to you, are the mental emotional symptoms, the physical symptoms, and the general symptoms. And we'll be looking at examples of these kind of symptoms, and it would be great if you then can participate and, put put something about your thoughts out for everybody. So what I would like to add to this, which may not be something that's talked about a lot, but the mental emotional symptoms, you can actually also classify those as general symptoms. And that would be because they affect the whole person. So when we look at these three types of symptoms, we want to see what's mental emotional, and that we know we can only find that in the repertory in the mental emotional or in the mental section of the repertory. The physical symptoms, there are many, and that's sometimes a real challenge. It's always good to have a few physical symptoms, of course, and they should be very specific. And the general symptoms we usually find in the general section of the repertory. But as I said, you could classify mental emotional symptoms also as general symptoms, because like the general symptoms are those symptoms that start with I statements and that affect the whole person, so do the mental emotional symptoms. Then we have the keynotes, and these you study quite a bit. The keynotes are very specific to the remedy and most likely not to be found in many other remedies. You do study them from the desktop guide, and there the keynotes, you find them printed in bold. And so that's what you want to concentrate on. And when you study your keynotes and make cards or any kind of system of memorization, this helps you greatly for tests and also to kind of recognize these when they come up in a case. When you do a chronic prescription, you need to be a little bit careful with the keynotes, and you usually cannot base a chronic case on just a couple of keynotes. You need to look at the totality of symptoms, of the pathology of the person, and then you want to save your keynotes, and you can use them later on to confirm the case when you read the remedies. In acute prescribing, keynotes are much more helpful. Acute states are usually more dramatic, more limited in symptom number, and the person may change from their normal state to something very different that's then expressed in the keynote symptom. So really look at those keynotes very closely when you do acute prescribing. Now, keynotes are great to help memorization. With keynotes, you can create yourself a framework that you then use, and then later on with learning more and more about remedies, you can sort of tack on more symptoms, but the keynotes will be your framework that all of this summarizes around. I like to look at a few physical symptoms with you and ask you which symptom is a very helpful symptom, or if it's even a usable symptom. And I'm going to ask along the list of symptoms that I have. There's just a few. You can type in yes or no and see what you think about this. So look at first at mental emotional symptoms. Somebody says they can't remember names. Would you think that this is a usable symptom or not? Yes, you think it's a usable symptom. I would say so. And the reason why is because we know there's a rubric that we can look up, right? If somebody says they are forgetful, what would you think about that symptom? Forgetful? No. Any explanation to that? Do you like and say something about this? Why wouldn't we want to use the word forgetful? We do have a rubric, right? Well, I'd say The rubric is too big. If you find it, it's too big. How about the next symptom? Terribly worried about money. What would you think about that? Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem here to see all your comments, working on it. And there were some good answers about forgetful. It's not specific enough, right? What do we do with this? We end up with a whole bunch of remedies when we look at this, right? So let's see about, I have a good question here. My confusion is, okay, here we go. Now I can see you all. Great. Oh, I'm so glad. Now I can see that you're really thinking about this. So what about terribly worried about money? Yes, we love it because we have this wonderful rubric that covers this. And what about cannot stand a mess? Oh, there just coming a whole bunch of more yeses in. Now, I'd like to say something about this. And I think we need to think about it when the symptom comes up or when somebody says, I cannot stand a mess. Is it really a symptom, right? Or are they really sort of really limited by the fact that they cannot stand a mess and they really have to clean up and they can't do something else that they would rather do because it is a mess? Can they not think straight because it is a mess? Do they get terribly mad because there's a mess? So so we need to clarify this a little bit and when we ask our patients. So, but generally it's a good symptom because we have that great rubric, fastidious. What about feels someone stands beside him? Yes, in capital letters, exclamation mark. Yes, unique. Absolutely. Good one, right? This one we love to look up. And someone says they cannot concentrate. And we have a rubric, concentration difficult. You say yes. I'm not sure. Concentration difficult is sort of a bit common, you know, as an expression. Many people cannot concentrate or you know, they're tired or they haven't had their coffee yet or something. But we just need to clarify again and see how much of a problem it is. Which would be more helpful is to find out in which way it limits them that they cannot concentrate. And then you may get a better and more specific symptom out of that. Yes, that's right. It's a bit broad. Okay. So if you don't have any questions about this, we're just going to continue to the next category of usable symptoms. And there's a question here, and I'm not quite clear about what this question means. My confusion is, do you include in the list of symptoms, even if it's not pertinent, the reason for taking the case? I don't quite understand the question. Maybe we can get into this a little bit later when we actually look at situations, yeah? Because I got a big one here for you. So, oh, sorry, we'll go back one in a minute, but physical symptoms. Somebody says they have a bubbling in the center of the chest. How do you like that one? Would that be a good symptom to use? You may even know a remedy that has this symptom, right? Yes, we like that symptom, the bubbling, and it's right there in the center of the chest. So we have a sensation and we have a location. And then the next thing that would be really nice to have is a modality, and then we have a very complete symptom, right? So somebody says they have a pain in the leg. Pain in the leg. Are there any takers? No, need more information, Christy. Absolutely, you're right. definitely. This is not helping us much, way too broad. Her head hurts and she has constipation at the same time. Not a bad symptom, right? Now, what you may want to check out with the symptom is it every time that she has headaches, that she has constipations at the same time? And if that's true, then you have a concomitant, right? But it's got to be like that. Yes, it's a concomitant if it happens at the same time. And if this is a chronic symptom, then we want to know if it's always like this. So that would be a helpful symptom. Her face burns when she is hot. What would you think about that one? Yes. Yes. Oh, you guys outnumber me. I didn't think this was a really good symptom, but if it's a really strong burn, not everybody's face burns when they're hot. Now, that's something we have to adjust and, and figure out. So I would say sometimes you can take it, sometimes not. And here we come to the different perspectives on symptoms. It's like, okay, her face burns when she's hot. Well, she's hot, so the face is probably red and flushed, but it burns, so maybe that's a little bit more. And also, we could probably ask a few more questions about this. And if we don't have many other good symptoms, I would use it. If I have other symptoms that are a bit more specific, I would not use it and sort of put it to the side and later on look at the remedies that I'm working with and then see if that fits. So it would be more of a confirmatory symptom. She has ice cold hands when she is hot. Do you like that as a usable symptom? Yes. Now that's very strange, right? That's almost strange, rare, and peculiar. So it's unusual, absolutely. So we would go for that symptom. Do you have any more comments about physical symptoms? This is just a short list, for samples so that we can think about these things. Okay, we're going on then to the general symptoms. She likes sweets. What do you think about that? Thank you. No. Because liking sweets is not really a symptom, right? There has to be something else. There has to be some kind of effect from eating sweets or some incredible craving and cannot live without sweets. And then it may turn into a symptom, but it needs to be investigated a little bit more. They crave beer every night. Does that work as a symptom? You may be a little bit behind. I may get your messages a little bit behind. So we're now on craves beer every night. There we go. We do have good rubrics in the general symptoms about craving beer. So if it's really every night and it has to happen and they're grumpy if they don't get the beer that night, then I would take it. What about the rash from tomatoes? Yes, I would really look into this and see, how much I can get out of this symptom, because the number of people that get rashes from tomatoes is probably much, much smaller than the number of people that can eat tomatoes without problems. So I would definitely find that a usable symptom. Milk calms her down. I'm getting yeses, and I would say so because this is actually not just I like milk or I drink milk regularly, but this actually has an effect. It calms the person down. So I think that's a really good symptom. Then sharp pain in fingers before the snowstorm. Yes, because this is kind of an odd symptom because we're looking at general symptoms, and here it's just the fingers that are affected. But because it's before the storm, it's that the storm affects the person, and that way it turns into a general symptom. I mean, you can try to look this up under a physical symptom and say, oh, pain, extremities, fingers, stitching, and see if you find anything there that relates to the weather. And then I would probably go to the physical rubric. She doesn't drink much. How helpful is that for us when we make our symptom list? She doesn't drink much. Do I get yeses? I get some yeses and some nos. And to me, that wouldn't be a very strong symptom. Again, if I didn't have anything else to go by, I may use it, but you can't really say averse to drinking because that's not really clear. Does this person really not like to drink? And do they not like water, or do they just get nauseous by looking at water? So we do need to look at this because, yes, Christy, thirstless is a big rubric, right? And we can clarify these, but if we can't get any more out of it, then just doesn't drink much. I don't think it helps us that much. Eats bread every day. What do you think about that? We do have great spreads and pastries. Now, in this day and age, when everybody stays away from eating bread because of the gluten, so somebody eats bread every day is either it's a habit or they crave it. So we have to clarify that. Does it harm them in any way? I would like a rubric, bread or wheat or farinaceous foods or something like this aggravates. I would like that better than just eats bread every day because there's no power behind this one, right? It's not very intense. And most people, or many people, eat bread every day. So she likes the bread for the butter. How about that one? You could ask, how thick do you spread the butter on your slice of bread when you eat it? Would you eat the butter just like this with a spoon, or, stick your finger in it? Kids do this sometimes, and some people do, very rare, but some people do. So I think this could be a good symptom that somebody desires butter. The next category here would be to look at what is a complete symptom. And this really is described in more detail in your handout in Module 4, HSI 101. This is Bernninghausen developed this system or developed this expression of the three-legged stool. And he thought that if you have 3 out of these 4 points, then you have a complete symptom. And this is definitely a good guideline. When you do ask people about symptoms, keep this in mind. Location is pretty easy. Sensation is often not very hard if it's a physical symptom. And then the modalities, takes a little bit more asking, right? And I would always suggest that you do not ask what makes it better, what makes it worse. It's kind of something where people kind of get hung up on. They don't really want to, many people don't want to really, go there. Nothing makes it better. Nothing makes it worse. I don't know. I haven't noticed. So when you ask modalities, I would more ask about, and how does this make you feel? Have you noticed any difference? Is there anything that happens when you have experienced this? And do real open-ended questions so somebody can think about it. And, you know, I've just worked with someone last night, and I got modalities from this person that I never got. And I've worked with this person on and off for 10 years. So people don't remember, they don't know, but modalities are so incredibly important to us to get these complete symptoms. So, and take a look at that. And then the concomitants, when two symptoms come together, you know, like maybe a chill when someone urinates, or like we said, always constipation with the headaches, and these kind of symptoms are really valuable. Now, there is a bit of a question about which symptoms should we use. Do we use past symptoms? Do we use only the present symptoms? And what do we do in an acute case, and what do we do in a chronic case? And what I want to say about this is past symptoms are great, and but they are only important for us to use at the moment when they're still in the moment. So the symptom is old. It's been there all this time, and you can still, it's still there, you know. So somebody has chronic bladder infections as a child. They may not have them for a while. Then they come back. They may not have them for a while, but every time they get stressed or cold or exposed to wet feet or something like this, they will get the bladder infection again. So this is a past symptom that we want to take into account, because it's like a thread that goes all the way back to the past, and it may not be the main complaint right now, but it is still there. So I would use a past symptom at that point, right? Present symptoms are the most important, and to get them as specific and as characteristic as we can from the person to really see what the current disease state is. And those are the symptoms that we want to definitely be very precise with. In the acute case, we only want to take the acute symptoms. And we have to drill people. People that are acutely sick do not remember, do not know, have a fever, don't want to be bothered, would like to drink, but it's too far to go to the kitchen. So we really need to ask and ask and ask in an acute case. While in a chronic case, we wait more for what's coming out. But from what I've seen, my most successful acute prescriptions, 3 symptoms, give the remedy, change happens in 2 hours. If you stay really, really clear with the acute symptoms and with the change of the person's demeanor, food desires, thirst, position, sensitivity to cold, hot, for that specific time of the acute problem. Chronic cases, bigger, right? Much, much bigger. And what happens often is that you start taking a case, oh, I have to take an acute case for school, and you end up with 10 pages, and you have all these symptoms, and the person tells you their whole life, they tell you the acute symptoms, but you're stuck now with the history and with mental symptoms, and it's all a big mix-up. And what you really have to do at that point is you have to sort out what are the acute symptoms and what are the chronic symptoms in this case. And when you send cases to me, I do help you with that. So it's a learning process. It took me years to kind of figure out, you know, to be very precise and figure out really which symptoms I wanted to take. If you have any questions so far, let me know, but I would like to go into a few sample cases. And I hope we can do it, but if you have time, we'll go on a little bit longer. First case is a historical case, and it's from this wonderful book by Erastus Case. It's called Cases by Erastus Case. And we never really get symptoms like this or cases like this that are so dramatic. That's why I picked it. And it's what I did is I took the case, which was probably just a page, and I only have a little bit of a description, which you have here right now, and then I went on to draw out symptoms from the rest of the case, and then we'll look at the symptoms. So a gentle, modest, auburn-haired woman of 44 years has suffered from cerebrospinal meningitis, to which their symptom seemed specific. The fever and pains have been gone for a week, leaving her in a pitiful, shameless, erotic mania, during which she has been almost sleepless and growing steadily more violent in behavior. Her gestures and language should not be described. It was not pretty. So I drew out the symptoms. Maybe you already know the remedy. I wouldn't be surprised. And here are the symptoms. She talks constantly, sings, prays, curses. If opposed, she screams, strikes, bites, and throws things. She holds liquids in her mouth, then squirts them over her attendants. She tears off all clothing and uncovers. And then we go to the next set. She thinks Jesus has pardoned her of all her sins, that she is pure and must not be touched by anyone. She poses as a statue and wishes all to view her heavenly beauty. Her eyes are staring with dilated pupils and cannot bear light. Do we have a keynote here or not? And her excretions are passed unnoticed, which means she has, involuntary stool. So the interesting part of this case is that almost every sentence in his case description was a symptom. So now we translate this into rubrics, right? Do you agree? Do you think these are all good symptoms? I thought so. I thought they were amazing. Because the case is so intense, we get these kind of symptoms. Here's my repertorization. He probably didn't repertorize at all because it's pretty clear. So what I used was mania, madness, singing with, mind cursing, swearing, desire in mania, mind throws things away and around, mind biting in mania, mind spit, desires to faces of people, she spits them in the face, mind tears up the clothing, mind touched aversion of being, mind delusions, imaginations, God, goddess, he is. And so we have all mental symptoms. Usually not a good thing, but in this case, it's a totally mental case, so it's okay. Then we have rectum, involuntary stool, and we have the eyes, photophobia, artificial light. Aggravates them. Good, right? You like those? So I wanted to make a point that mental symptoms in a total mental case are very good and very important. Pair them with general symptoms and your case becomes more reliable, especially when you use mental symptoms that weren't clearly expressed and you sort of interpret them. So you have to be very careful with that. That's why the generals balance that out well. So the treatment was, in May 1863, she received in the evening stramonium CM, which is huge. It's a 100,000 potency by Finke. Finke was a German homeopath, and he did a lot with water potentization. You can actually look him up on Wikipedia. So she just got one powder, which means one dose. On May 7th, an aggravation followed. Now, here's what does happen in mental cases. Has never happened to me, but I've never given a CM in a mental case. So she had an aggravation, a sleepless night. She's so violent that she would be placed in the insane asylum if they had a bed for her. They don't have a bed, so these guys have to bear it out through the night. And then May 8th, she began to sleep in the evening and rested well through the night. This morning she called for clean clothes and complained because her bed was not properly made, and she recovered quickly and remained rational. Do you have any questions about this case? My intent for you to understand this was to show you that sometimes you can have a slew of mental symptoms, but only if they are very clear, and then still have a couple of generals to go by. Another case example, and I want you first to decide before we go into the symptoms, I want you to decide if this is acute chronic case. This case is from one of our students, really. She saw this person, 44 years old, master's student in counseling, and she's also a realtor. She did not look sick at all and was well camped, wearing comfortable, warm, suitable clothes to the cold. And she's gentle and kind. Her main complaint is a cold with dry cough coming from deep in her sternum, and she has extreme mental and physical fatigue. Now let me know what you think about this. Is this, what do you think from the main complaint? Can you tell yet if this is chronic or acute? Acute, good. Yes. Anyone else? Okay, I would say yes. Acute, yes. Good. So the only thing that could throw us off here a little bit is that she has this extreme mental and physical fatigue, which has probably been building for a while, right? But it's not like really a chronic disease of sorts. So here we go on. And the first 2 to 3 days of her illness, the symptoms were much more pronounced. With a clear runny nose, she's getting subtle, dull, constant maddening headaches. She started her period on 10/29/11, which was not so bad. Usually it has her on the floor in a fetal position, and our student did not pay any attention to this. She went straight to the current symptoms. So, and she was also taking this medication, naproxen, for her headache at this time, and this is maybe why her period wasn't quite as bad. This problem came on suddenly about a week ago. She's been working too hard and has been overburdened with schoolwork, her internship, and her job as a realtor. She thinks her system finally broke down. So again, we have a general effect on the system, but we don't really have a chronic disease, right? There's not much difference in her emotional state since the onset of the cold, aside from initially feeling very irritable. She kept overextending herself even with work and school, although she was very, very weak. She loves someone around her to make her feel better. She doesn't want to take a bath right now, so it sounds to me like she was asked, would you like to take a hot bath? Does that make you feel better? A good symptom that was taking was ailments from overwork, better consolation, extreme fatigue, worse, slight physical or mental exertion. Isn't that nice? And worse, showering and bathing. So that fatigue got worse if she took a shower. She has a nasal discharge, constant, clear like egg white, and she has a dry, unproductive cough from deep in the chest. Symptom list goes on. She aches all over her body and the muscles. Now, this symptom is a bit like general, right? Doesn't this happen a lot when we get a cold or a flu? She is chilly with sweating everywhere except the face and the head. And so she's sweaty, but she's worse cold. Her headaches, so that's a bit of a specific symptom. Her headaches are subtle, dull, constant, and maddening. Now, headaches are often subtle, dull, and constant. So I'm not sure if I would take the headache as a symptom, but that they are maddening, that shows us the intensity of the headache. And if we come to a good acute remedy, we may find that in the remedy. She has yellowish mucus, and it's been hocked up in the mornings. So again, we have a specific symptom, really. We have the color, and we have the stuck in the throat, and we have the timing in the morning. I think it's a good symptom. She has a thirst for cold water, which can be a little odd. Often people crave warm drinks when they have a cold or a sore throat or something like this. She's hungry, but no food appeals to her. She does crave cold orange or fruit juice, again the cold. She has dark, strong smelling urine. She has an aversion to rich foods, and she's better laying down. So our student here did a really, really good job on the rubrics, and I would like to show these to you. One of the big symptoms was that weakness, right? That weakness really got her. And she, in this craving, juice and cold things was strong, wasn't it? Then expectoration, morning. But I'll show you the rubrics. And she did cut this fairly long symptom list down to some really nice rubrics. She has the general weakness, mental exertion aggravates, and she has the general pain in the muscles during the fever, and she has the general fruit desires fruit juice, the expectoration yellow in the morning, the chill with perspiration, and that means there's while you're there's the sweating during the fever when you're cold. That's this rubric. Chills, perspiration with perspiration. The nose discharge, albuminous, which is that clear egg white stuff. The cough, she just put deep. And the stomach, that she couldn't decide on food. Appetite, capricious. So, oh, sorry, here's the perspiration, here's the nose discharge, here's the deep cough, and the capricious appetite. And then this was translated into the repertory, and I did a repertorization here that shows you that, this is a nice number of symptoms, but she definitely didn't take all. So she has the capricious hunger, the discharge, the deep cough, the yellow expectoration in the morning, the mental exertion that was worse by doing things, the juicy, she desires the juicy things, and she desires the cold water. Symptoms that were really left over that didn't quite have anything to do really with acute, in my opinion, which were symptoms that the dark, strong smelling urine could have been a result of the acute, but it could have just been that she didn't drink enough. So we had to know more in order to use this and see if it's a part of the acute or not. It wasn't clear. Aversion to rich foods was something that she had always, and she was better lying down, which many people are when they're sick, so she left that out, and I thought that was a good idea. And do you think there's anything that that you don't agree with? But you can see how it's a very clear acute case, and then we have a few symptoms and we don't pay attention to them, and maybe they come back later and we have to take their chronic case, and then we keep these symptoms and look at them and see if they're still there. Now, here is another case. And this is a 8-year-old male student. He is small for his age, slim, very pale, bluish discoloration under his eyes and some dark moles on his face. He is timid, warms up slowly to me. He keeps himself busy with toys. He has hay fever from milk products, dust, dust, tree pollen, and scallops. This leads to swelling of the glands and asthma. He is upset and broods 80% of the time. Acute or chronic case? Would you let me know what you think? Here's the report. And the mother tells that this past year, G has developed allergies resulting in badly swollen glands. The asthma, since his past fall, is worse from exercise, pollen. He sneezes frequently, often has a runny nose with clear discharge. He's worse at the beach. People often ask him if he's been crying because his eyes water so much. He looks unhealthy because of his pale skin and his blue discoloration under his eyes. He has been diagnosed with iron deficiency anemia like his mom, and as the younger of 5 children, he fights for what he needs. His parents work, much of his time he has to spend with brothers and sisters. There are often disagreements which leave him irritable. He broods and sulks when he doesn't get his way, and he tells his parents that they do not punish his siblings enough. He shows sympathy for others beyond his years. Mother saw him console his leaving friend with hugs and kind words. He's going to miss his friend as well, but he's more worried about his friend being sad. He stands up for others who are treated unfairly. He is easily hurt by the actions or words of others. He's sensitive and moved to tears by music, especially by a song reminding him of his brother who has left for college. He plays with Legos, here we go, in a very organized fashion and keeps busy. He likes video games. His favorite game is Dance Dance Revolution. His mother says he's a dancing fool. He's not embarrassed to dance in front of other people even. He sleeps with lights on when alone. All he wants to eat is cereal, crackers, pretzels, milk, yogurt, and cheese. Dairy has been taken out of his diet, and all agree he's not as stinky as before, referring to the gas and the offensive stools the dairy caused him. He's frequently thirsty and drinks water because that's all they have in the house. And so we're coming now to a very long symptom list, and thank you. Yes, clearly chronic, right? Very involved pathology. Lots of symptoms, and I'm just going to go down this list, and then I show you how they were sorted out. And so what we have here is allergies cause swollen glands, offensive gas, asthma, hay fever, runny nose, sneezing, watery eyes, worse in the fall, worse from exercise, worse on the beach, iron deficiency anemia, gets cavities easily, a little afraid of the dark, sleeps with a light on when alone, feels for the others, not typical of a boy of 8, stands up for siblings or friends treated badly. He is oversensitive to disagreements and hurt by them. He is angry if he doesn't get it his way. He dwells on, broods on, past events 80% of the time. And now he's starting to be very obstinate, probably can't get his point across. He often feels he's been wronged, dwells, timid, reserved, and shy with new people. He loves to dance. He weeps for music. And he's organized, responsible, fastidious, unexpected at his age. He's very pale, dry skin on legs and arms. He has dry, cracked lips. He is warm-blooded, and at 15 degrees outside he wears shorts and a t-shirt. He's pale. He's got dark moles, bags under his eyes, and has a few gray hair. It goes on. He sprained his hips 2 years ago. He has glandular swellings in several places. He craves crackers, pretzels, cereal, milk, yogurt, cheese. He's allergic to dairy, scallops, cause his glands to swell and give him offensive gas and stool. He has allergies worse in the fall. He's warm-blooded. He laughs in his sleep from funny dreams. His nasal, clear, viscous discharge is worse on the beach. He has aversion to most fruits and all vegetables. He has a strong thirst for water. Now we have 31 symptoms. My gosh, what are we going to do? So she did it very nicely and organized and sorted it out into first mental symptoms. Brooding and dwelling on past disagreeable events, overly responsible, obstinate, sympathetic. He cannot support injustice. This is her set of mental rubrics for the whole case. If you feel like something is missing, let me know. And physical symptoms, she only took these 2, and this is really good actually, because this is what's going on. He has asthma. We are actually treating his asthma, and these 2 rubrics are pretty nice. He has asthma after exercise, and he has hay fever. And she didn't go into detail there because it happens at all kinds of times. So then, looking at the general symptoms, he craves milk, and he is aggravated by milk, and he craves farinaceous foods, all the crackers and pretzels and all this, and he has inflammation of glands as a result to certain foods and circumstances. So I was really proud of her. She condensed the whole 31 symptoms into this, and what she has represents the case for me. We used the rubrics: brooding, dwells on past disagreeable events, mind sensitive, sensitive, oversensitive to reprimand, mind injustice cannot support, and mind obstinate. Respiration asthmatic, exercise after, respiration asthmatic, hay fever, generals inflammation glands, generals seaside aggravates, generals milk aggravates, generals milk desires, generals food and drinks, farinaceous foods. And I put it into a repertorization, and what do we get? Not bad for a big case like that. Good amount of rubrics from every section, and everything except milk aggravates covers carcinosin. Now, calcarea is a close runner-up, and then it sort of falls away, right? So what we did here is she also has a very extensive family health history: pneumonia, migraines, this enlargement of the testes with water. Then we have Hashimoto's disease, iron deficiency anemia, soy allergy, and then it comes colon cancer and more cancer, and disease, maternal grandfather lung cancer, paternal grandfather prostate cancer, paternal grandmother lymphoma, and 6 paternal aunts all have asthma, and 4 have migraines, and 7 of them have thyroid disease and diabetes. So we do have a very clear carcinosin picture, don't we? And I will not get into this more. The remedy carcinosin was given, and it helped them a lot. Now, our time has come up, and what I showed you is a clear acute case and a clear constitutional case, right? And I do have a great case where both are mixed. And if you have 15 more minutes or 20, I would say stay on, and we can get into that case as well. If you have any other questions right now and you want to leave, maybe you can send me some questions and I can answer those. What does my chat box say here? Let me see. I don't get anything else, just this one question from earlier on. Okay. If you'd like to stay on, let's go to this one here. It's another student case, and I did feel sorry for this poor person having to take this case almost at the very beginning, you know, of the program, one of the first constitutional cases, and it was very involved. So what we have is a 26-year-old female, and she's a waitress, and pale face with pink cheeks, clear skin, happy and chipper disposition, very extroverted. Sinus issues is the main complaint. So we know this is chronic, right? Then she goes on to saying, I have a lot of mucus draining down my throat all the time, chronic. My nose has been really, really dry lately. I will go from dry to running. My nose would go from dry to running quickly. I sneeze more inside, but the environment hasn't changed much of what's going on. Marijuana helps me be less aware of the sinus issues. The sneezing is obnoxious. I rub my nose constantly. I usually get sinus issues in the spring or fall, but not the winter. It's a young person. I sleep like crap. I wake up all the time. If I do get a full night's sleep, or if I don't get a full night's sleep, I wake up exhausted, like I didn't sleep at all. I just want to eat chocolate until I throw up. That's a pretty strong chocolate craving here. The sinuses started 3 weeks ago after Christmas. This was the first Christmas she'd been home ever, since she left home. She got depressed, angry, and bitter. She tried LSD for the first time on both Christmas days. So really this is a bit questionable. She's only had this sinus issue for 3 weeks. She's been getting burned out on her job. People were on her nerves, and they need to stay home if they can't act right on a server. She feels mistreated. She may become a yoga instructor or work for a nonprofit. Mid-December, she decided to walk the Appalachian Trail again, this time by herself. It will take her 6 months. She met her current roommates, a nice family, on her last walk of this trail. It's a long one. She's having a hard time leaving on the trip because she's become attached to her sort of adopted family. Her parents, now that she's home especially, are pressuring her to grow up and be responsible. She isn't ready yet to make that leap. The parents' pressure isn't helping her with making decisions. She's been contemplating her relationship patterns lately, asking herself, what is that I'm bringing to myself, and why am I in all these relationships? So what we know really from the statement is her relationships don't work, and she's a bit disappointed of what happens in her relationships. She is changing all her hygiene products to organic. She takes multivitamins and a homeopathic tonic for PMS. She's running now and has more energy after she runs. She is super tired if she sits too long after her work. She has noticed that warm days make her manic and cold days make her lethargic. Her appetite has increased and she craves dark chocolate, ice cream, fruit, and sour things like lemonade. She doesn't have much thirst right now. She is hot-natured with cold feet and hands. Pain and swelling in her right tear duct has done nothing to it or to make it stop. Her skin has been itching on the left side of her lower back, nothing visible. Right lower back spasms at work last week. Sharp, comes and goes suddenly. She has bizarre dreams regularly. Recently she dreamt of her teeth crumbling off her mouth, but she's not worried too much about it. If that would happen, she would just get dentures. So here you have a huge case, really, and I cut this down. This was like 16 pages of descriptions of different things that were going on. But, you know, the student was very, very brave, and she went on and sorted out symptoms. So this person has anxiety about life changes. She has ailment from disappointment from the relationships. She's becoming burnt out at work. She has a slight pressure at the base of her nose. She has clear mucus draining down throat and out nose, worse in the morning. She sneezes numerous times a day. She has dull pain in the nose when the nose is dry and crusty. She has a disturbed sleep. She doesn't sleep through the night. She's exhausted on waking. She has a hot body with cold hands and feet. She has piercing pain and swelling in her right tear duct. She has itching of the lower back periodically. She has intense sharp pain in the lower right side of the back, and this has happened twice. She is thirstless. She has desire for chocolate, fruit, ice cream, and sour. She's better with running. She's better with smoking pot. And then she went to the rubrics. And I helped her sort out the rubrics a little bit, and I took some of them out and reduced it. But what she does have as rubrics: mind of the anxiety of the future, ailment from disappointment, desire to travel, nose discharge clear, nose sneezing frequently, nose coryza in the morning on rising it's worse. She has unrefreshing sleep, and she has this problem with the sinuses and her kind of being stuffed up in her glands. I won't say the word because I'm going to stumble over it. Lacrimal glands. And she desires chocolate a lot. We know that. So what then got repertorized are these things: disappointment, ailments, discharge clear, sneezing frequent, coryza in the morning worse, the affection of her lacrimal ducts, the dryness in her nose, and in her sinuses, and this internal sensation of dryness. So what we did is concentrate on the current situation that started 3 weeks ago. Left a lot of stuff out. Nat Muir came up. So that was the first remedy to go with. So then there were some leftover rubrics. And that was interesting because we have these here: the mind anxiety of the future, mind desires to travel, general food and drink, chocolate desires. That wasn't included previously. And they were put into a rubric, into the computer, and gave this readout: mind anxiety future, mind travels, mind desires chocolate. Just those three. Just interesting that all of these 3 rubrics got covered by very few remedies, and that would have to be explored next time when this person came back. You know, there's a strong drift to tuberculinum here and a strong drift to carcinosin, and then a couple more remedies. But if this sinus issue is addressed with Nat Muir, and it does help, and it's probably going to take a little while, maybe a couple of months to get through this, and then the case is retaken, more symptoms are taken in, added to these leftover rubrics, that's when somebody would get a good constitutional remedy, yes? And we made it so far. You hung in there. So what we did is we did a historical case of a mania which had very strong symptoms that were all caused by the mania. And then we had an acute case where we used only the acute symptoms and took some of the more long-term or chronic symptoms out. And then the third case, we had a very straightforward chronic case. We used only the chronic symptoms, not the symptoms falling and having a hip injury or a couple of other things we had. We left all of that out and confirmed it actually with the family history. And then we had this fourth case, which was a very mixed case, and it was a lot more confusing than you saw it right now. So, I don't know if this helped you to kind of look with a little bit of a different eye at your cases. And even if you take an acute case and it's all confusing and there are all kinds of mixed symptoms and you write them down and you have them, and you do have to write an acute case, try to go back in there and just draw out the acute symptoms. Yes, you can also ask me too, but that would be a really good exercise in getting a clear acute case, and especially when you have this mix-up of symptoms. So let me know if you have any questions. You can also stay on and we can communicate a little bit longer. If you have questions later on, once you think about some of these things, write me. If you have suggestions for a topic and maybe want to discuss a case in the future, write me also, and I can take one of the cases that you submit. We can also do this like in a teleconference form. I could email you the case and then we can actually talk on the phone, which would be nice to do. And I would like to let you know that Alistair Gray is going to talk about potency in April, and we will send you the time and date on that. So if you like to stay on and put a few questions in here, that would be great.